Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I am elated and excited to have a very special guest to the show, Angela Stubbs. Now, her path to mindfulness began as a writer, where she merges Eastern philosophy with storytelling. And today we're going to talk about her book, but her journey deepens through Holocaust research and transformative experience she had in Paris. After a career shift from entertainment, she dedicated herself to healing trauma, becoming a certified mindfulness teacher, and now head of PR at Winona. She combines her passion for guiding women through the challenges of menopause and menopause. So I'm excited to dive into all that and along with her book. So with no further ado, Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really am happy to be here and to talk about Winona and all things menopause and, the background that I have and how I got here. So I'm happy to hear all the questions you have.
Yeah, let's start with the name of it. I know offline you were telling me it's like Indian, the Winona, and of was it younger daughter? You mentioned
firstborn daughter. Yeah.
Tell us about the name and how it is so fitting with what you do.
So I think our founders were very intentional when it came to naming the company. You see a lot of, and I think it's, I always laugh, in these female products come out or female companies, and it's like Lucy or Grace or something that's always just sort of, like something you would see on a tampon ad that you feel like it's very stereotypical and, Blossom, and it's fine. But I think that when we were naming Winona, we were really trying to think of a name that would encapsulate sort of the energy of and the wisdom of women. And the word Winona in Sioux, which is an Indian-based tribe, has this name Winona, which talks about the firstborn daughter and the wisdom inherent in women who are sort of leading the pack. And it's not to say that other women who are not firstborn don't have that inherent wisdom, but certainly you think about the trailblazing that comes with being a firstborn. A lot of, our siblings follow in the steps of the eldest, right? But Winona, I think, really likes to focus on, how we empower women from the youngest to the eldest to the firstborn. So yeah, that's where Winona comes from.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I like that name. As a firstborn from my mom's side, I can appreciate the reference to the trailblazing aspect of it. And for yourself, I know you've had experiences, you've been doing research. What led you to Winona? Tell us about the background that kind of led you here.
So for many, many years, I'm a very creative person. I've always been a writer. When I was a younger person in my 20s and I was going to school, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I definitely felt like I was going to work in the entertainment industry. I wasn't really sure in what capacity. I just knew that I wanted to be around creative people and I wanted to do things that help people tell their stories. And I sort of found myself trying to figure out what does that look like? How do you find your path? You might have an idea of where you're headed, but entertainment's a large world. There are lots of things you could do in that space. And I ended up working in various capacities in entertainment for a long time. Marketing was one of those spaces. But as much as I enjoyed entertainment, I went to school to get not one, but 2 masters. I really enjoy education and learning. So I, got my first master's in fiction at a very small Buddhist contemplative university called Naropa. It's in Boulder. It's very small, but it's very art driven. I think the school is comprised of about 30% people who are like dancers, performers, writers, creatives, and then 70% are really there for psychology to become psychologists of varying types. So the school was founded by Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and then a Buddhist named Chokham Trungpa Rinpoche. So the school sort of functions in this way of carrying the weight of 2 different modalities in terms of where people really want to focus their energy. So I did my first master's there in fiction. And then I really felt like I wasn't done studying and was in the process of studying, do a PhD. I ended up getting a second master's and going to NYU in Paris and getting my second degree in poetry. So at the heart, I'm a writer through and through, but along with the writing comes a real strong desire on my side to tell people's stories and to support people, and not just people, but women specifically. And when I left working in television, I really felt called to kind of reevaluate the direction that my life was taking. I think I felt like I wanted to do something that had more, for me, that had more meaning, that could affect change, that could really help women. And in COVID, I found myself experiencing some sort of unknown symptoms that were really concerning to me. I remember spending lots of time and money going to physicians to see what was wrong with me. And come to find out, I was just in perimenopause, but I didn't know that because in my life and growing up as a Gen X person, I didn't know that some of the things I was experiencing were perimenopausal symptoms. So, I found myself at a heart specialist and at an internist and at all kinds of doctors trying to figure out what was going on with me. And I found Winona. It was COVID. And, when no one could really go see a doctor in person, it was in my Instagram feed, actually. It was how I found Winona. And I was a patient first. And I started taking the medication that Winona offers to women who are in perimenopause and menopause through their telehealth platform. And probably, I want to say it was pretty quickly, within about maybe 3 months, they had a call. They needed marketing help. And I remember thinking, well, I'm going to put my name in the hat. And I'm a firm believer that, what's meant for you won't pass by you. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, let's just see if it's for me, then it will be for me. And it was. So I was hired on as a producer and was working with the VP of marketing, creating content. And it was a small team in the beginning. It was a startup. It had been around for about a year when I came on board. We're now just over 3 years old. I started out as a producer, and my role has evolved into being the head of public relations. So I really enjoy that because I get to promote the things that Winona is doing and the things that we care about as a business. So this is how I've arrived at Winona as a patient and in various incantations of different titles at Winona. So
because you have buy-in, you have buy-in and you're convinced that it does work. So supporting others is going to be a lot easier and more authentic, I believe, coming from you and your end. Tell us about some of those symptoms that you are having, because Perimenopause is what you were saying. It's about a decade long.
It can be. Yeah. Unfortunately, not, I didn't know that either, honestly. Growing up, I had a mom who didn't really talk about being in menopause when she was in it. I mean, everybody, if you have a uterus, if you're born with a uterus, you're going to go through it, right? But no one I knew talked about it. And I sort of only really knew that it happened when you were older, knew it happened if you didn't get a period. And I thought, well, it's just usually like hot flashes and mood swings, right?
And you got time. It's going to come later. So you have time. We're not in the 50s, 60s. We got time. But we don't.
I really, and that was my, admittedly, my limited knowledge about being in what I thought it meant to be in menopause. And I didn't know anything about perimenopause. I mean, I figured there was probably a phase leading up to menopause where things might start to, become more noticeable. But I really didn't think it would happen in your 40s. Certainly it can happen even into your 30s, but I didn't know that. And I also didn't know, aside from hot flashes and things like that, I didn't know what that would even look like. Like I had zero clue. Mm-hmm. So
like a lot of people, like a lot of women. So you're not alone.
It was a rude awakening. I started having heart palpitations. And when I would go to sleep at night, my heart was doing this jumpy, fluttery thing, and it was making me very anxious. So as you can imagine, having something crop up as a symptom already is troubling because you don't know why you're having it. But then worrying about why you're having it there's another problem now. Now you have anxiety about why you have a problem that you don't know what it is and why is it here. And it was still COVID. And I remember thinking, hey, is it COVID? Is it my heart? Is it anxiety? Is it all of these things? Is it because of COVID? Is it not because of COVID? So I had a lot of unanswered questions. And like a lot of women do, I ignored these things. I was like, it's just anxiety. It's just COVID times and you're anxious. And I just kept kind of pushing it off to the side. And it got to a point where I was so anxious about the symptoms. I was starting to have like actual panic attacks. Like I was freaking out. Yeah. To put it bluntly, I was just really, I think it was just that I kept backburnering it. And then I was also a little bit, gaslighty. I kept telling myself like, oh no, it's not even really a thing. You're, just overreacting. It's fine. You're fine. You're fine. And there was a point where I thought, okay, let's go see a doctor. So I went to my internist and he said, well, you seem fine. Like we did blood work, labs seem fine. Did some like normal tests. If you go to your doctor and say, hey, I'm having XYZ things, it's not really related to anything else I'm experiencing. Can we see what's going on? They always, usually want to run some labs and see what's happening. So all my blood tests came back normal. And, then you really feel crazy because then you have a doctor going, well, your labs are normal and we don't see anything really wrong with you. And you're like, well, what's happening to me? Yeah. So then he said, let's refer you to a heart specialist, to a cardiologist. We'll see if they can run some tests for you. I was like, oh, okay. So I go to him, spend some more money. And they're like, yeah, you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. And you're kind of like, what? Yeah. So then the cycle starts getting a little more complicated because now you're spending money at doctor's offices. Everyone's telling you you're fine. But like the thing is, and this is why I feel so passionately about Winona, is that if women were educated sooner about perimenopause, like what does it even mean to be in perimenopause? Like what are the symptoms you might experience? What can you do about it? Like what should you do if you think this is you? Like what are your options? Do you have any? Like none of that, for me at least, existed. I didn't have that experience. So it's become really important to me to help educate women about how we share information, empower women to take better charge of their health, and really to give people the tools to make better choices, right? Because if you don't know, you don't know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I like the education piece of it. So for someone listening, what are some of the signs to look out for, if they're not sure how to pinpoint it or how to diagnose?
Well, certainly, there's a lot of wisdom inherent in our bodies if we're willing to listen. Mm-hmm. So I think slowing down enough in our daily lives, most of us are rushing around a lot. And, if you're like me, you tend to like block out things that might slow you down. So you go like, I have a headache, or, oh, I have XYZ. And you're like, yeah, it's fine. It'll, whatever. So what typically arises in terms of perimenopausal symptoms for a lot of women are, first and foremost, would be like a shift in your menstrual cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Now that can be like, say you're someone who has a normal cycle, they become irregular. Either maybe you're skipping months, or conversely, you're having maybe 2 periods a month, or maybe you're bleeding the entire month except for like 6 or 7 days. So just irregularity in the cycle, or maybe you have like 2 periods a month and then you skip 3 or 4 months and then you get one back and you have a normal 1 or 2 months and then again. So the irregularity piece is pretty key. Also change in the actual flow of your cycle. So if you're someone who's always really light and you suddenly are, having like a crime scene, maybe then you go like, oh, okay. Like paying attention to that piece. Anxiety, panic, heart palpitations are all perimenopausal things. Now they can be those symptoms by themselves can be related to things outside of perimenopause, which obviously makes it tricky to know, am I an anxious person? Am I just having something that really is anxiety? Or am I having this out of the blue? And, it's something to consider, right? It doesn't necessarily mean because you're having a heart palpitation, you're in perimenopause. But when you start, like, look at the age range, like, are you of perimenopausal age? The range typically for someone entering into perimenopause is mid-40s, typically. Now, women can be in perimenopause at an earlier age for other medical reasons, like just depending on your medical history. Certain things can like push you into an early menopause, like if you have a hysterectomy at a younger age, or you have some reproductive health issues, it can definitely put you into menopause. Women who get cancer, who go through chemo, almost always end up going into early menopause, for whatever reason. Any kind of cancer, doesn't matter. So there are lots of things that can kind of, unfortunately, punch you into menopause early, but the perimenopause piece, I would say ballpark, I have a college roommate who was like in menopause by the time she was 40. It's pretty early.
Crazy.
But it happens, right? So it's not everybody. That's not my experience. But so it's not necessarily check a box. Oh, if you're 45, you'll be in perimenopause. If you're 38, you won't. You have to sort of listen. I think the other things too that start happening, some like lesser symptoms, if you will, are hair loss. Like if you start washing your hair and you're noticing that like it's coming out more.
Yeah,
that's something. Really excessively dry skin. So it doesn't have to be just like hands, arms, legs. Like if your skin is typically oily and you're noticing like my skin is more dry, like overall, like vaginal dryness too. If you have like somehow excessively dry skin, but that also includes reproductively in the areas where you wouldn't normally be, noticing that as well. Decreased libido. Like if you suddenly aren't interested in sex, you're just sort of like could take it or leave it, and that's not normal for you. That's something. Sometimes people report having like some gum issues, dental gum related problems, bad breath or dry mouth, like excessively, not just like you have a day where you maybe, went out the night before, you had a couple cocktails, you're dehydrated, not that, like excessively dehydrated or excessively having like dry mouth where you're constantly needing extra water that you're carrying around, things like that. But there's actually a lot of subtle symptoms that are part of perimenopause. And on the Winona website, we have a free downloadable e-guide that is 130 plus perimenopausal symptoms. So as you can imagine, there are a lot. I didn't know any of them prior to working at Winona. I'm now pretty educated on that, but I would say, keeping track, if you start to notice things that are a little amiss, symptom wise, just keeping some kind of a checklist for yourself about what you're experiencing, so that when you go to your gynecologist or you go to your OBGYN, you can say, hey, for the past 3 months, these things have been happening. What do you think?
Yeah. And you would know yourself best, right? You'd know your body to know, okay, this is not normal, just like you did. You were like, no, this is different. I've lived in this body for 35 years and this is new. This is brand new. And kind of being innate and being intentional about listening to your body can be a good guiding post.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know for you, your meditation is big for you as well. So let's talk about how you kind of utilize that to help to support women to, do the same so they can tune in.
Right. I think one of the really common pieces for women in general is that, we're busy, we don't slow down. And then the other part of it is, I think we're our own worst critic. Women in general tend to, be highly critical of ourselves. So if we aren't able to do the things we normally do on a daily basis, I know I get very judgmental. Like if I'm having a tough time, and I think that that's compounded when you're experiencing perimenopausal symptoms or menopausal symptoms. If you aren't able to, maybe you're not resting, like insomnia is a big thing that women experience in perimenopause and menopause. So everybody knows, like if you aren't sleeping well, it affects the quality of your day and your night. And so what I notice for myself, and I hear from other people, is that inner critic comes out, which is like, oh, well, if you had slept more, then this wouldn't be an issue. Or if you had done X, Y, Z, or if you weren't feeling this way, then. So it's all the if-then statements that kind of come into play. So I find that one of the real key pieces for women when it comes to meditation is really developing not just a practice for when you're experiencing symptoms that are unwanted, but really focusing in on the self-compassion piece with meditation. So, and it's so hard because we offer it freely, our compassion to others who are, if you have a friend who's struggling, we're always the first to be like, oh, how can I help? Or what do you, but when it comes to yourself, it's a little harder to extend that same kind of love and kindness to yourself. So I always like to really work with loving kindness practice and self-compassion practice when I meditate and when I meditate with others. And that usually just begins with taking inventory, like actually asking yourself when you sit down to meditate, like, how do I feel in my body right now, today, in this moment? Like, what are the things that come up? And, when a lot of people first begin a meditation practice, one of the things we encourage people to embrace is it's just a tool that you can utilize when you meditate, which is naming. Like you're not naming it aloud, but so when you sit down to meditate and you take that internal inventory and you say, like, how am I feeling my body right now? So whatever arises, like, hey, I'm hungry. Just name it, like, okay, hunger is here, stress is here, anxiety is here, fatigue is here, whatever it is. And the idea of naming is so that we're not attaching to the thing itself with judgment, right? It's just noticing what you notice. So that this is something present with you in that space at that time, and knowing that it's just here, like as a visitor for this meditation, right? So really getting women used to just noticing what's there, not attaching a story to it, a judgment to it, and then just sort of moving on and like letting that be the first and primary step of that meditation process is usually where we start.
I like that naming aspect of it because as you were talking, a light bulb went off for me. It's like, well, you're going to show up different every day, and that's okay. You're depending on what's going on. The fatigue could be there from a long week. It could be from mothering. It could be from running the business. And so that self-compassion just kind of it reeled in for me to understand that it's okay to show up different every day and just kind of accept that. That beautiful woman that does show up and show that same kind of compassion, kindness that you would have if it was a friend, if it was another person.
Mm-hmm. I ask myself this all the time when I think about, I don't even think, on a conscious level, it's such an autopilot thing that the way that I think I speak to myself and the way that I actually do is so different. Like, I think that I'm much more kind to myself than I really am because that inner critic, that ugly inner critic is there all the time. Like with that little unwanted commentary, I like to think of it as the Karen that no one wants, we're good. We don't need you. We don't need you to pipe in today. Thanks so much. We're good. Yeah.
We don't need your commentating today. Thank you.
Oh, because it's really unhelpful. And you really just walk away feeling like garbage. And I think when I have women and friends, family, my sister, anybody, my mom, people who share things with you, I always think like, well, how do I respond to them when they come to me with things that they're struggling with? I'm always like, oh gosh, like, well, have you thought about this? Or, how are you feeling with that? Or just even being a listener. And if I come to the table with some of these same issues when I sit down and that inner critic is like, well, da, 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 da. And I think this is not how I would speak to anybody that I care about. So top of list should be you, right? But it's just not, it's not your first instinct to sort of address yourself in that same manner. So my task, especially if I lead anybody else, but certainly just for healthy day-to-day living, is really stopping and pausing to say like, okay, what do I need today? Like I often do a lot of like hand to heart exercise when I meditate or I instruct people to do this, because people, like, especially if you live by yourself or you work all day by yourself, like checking in, like physical touch is such an important part of meditating, because people, want, whether they acknowledge it or not, like we all need to have some kind of physical interaction with someone or something during the course of our day. And if you're someone who works by yourself or you're alone for a large part of that, when you check in to meditate, I always feel like, putting your hand on your own heart as a support to honor yourself just for showing up to sit 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you're doing. Like, hey, I see you. I value you. I recognize that you're here. I recognize today is a great day. It's an easy day. It's a hard day, whatever it is, but just hand to heart and like honoring that and feeling, even if it's your own hand on top of the other, honoring and pausing for you to be there the same way that you would like pat someone on the shoulder or hug somebody. You can also offer it to yourself. So really finding ways that you can show up for you when you sit to meditate, I think is so important, especially in menopause, because we're already so unhappy, right? When you're experiencing all these things that are unwanted, it feels like a punishment. I think that there's this churn that happens for women that are feeling discontent in their bodies just because of something that we have no control over in terms of our experience. So it kind of brings it back to the self to say, like, I have autonomy in this moment to decide how I want to interact with how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm. And I know storytelling is huge for you, especially as being a poet and a writer. How do you empower women to kind of tell their story and use storytelling to kind of use that to be therapeutic and meditative in a way?
I think, everybody has a story, whether we consider ourselves storytellers or not, right? Everybody has a story to tell. And I think the best thing about sharing stories is the way that building connectivity and community through storytelling is so powerful. People in general, not just women, but people in general want to feel seen and heard. And I think one of the ways that happens is when we see reflected back in one another some kind of connective tissue or commonality, whether that's through what we look like, where we live, what we do for a living, how we interact, experiences that we have on a daily basis in our health, in our marriages, in our relationships, in our work life, whatever it is. We all want you want to go like, oh, I know what that's like. I know that. I feel that. I see that. I've had that. Because then there's this nice connection that you sort of inadvertently make just by sharing something that's happening to you, something that's happened to someone because it really builds this just inherent community in the storytelling by itself. Like, I feel like women end up going like, oh, I really, it's like, why do you like going to a yoga class? Why do you connect with this teacher versus somebody else, or this doctor versus somebody else? Because there's some aspect of them that you see reflected back. There's a vulnerability there that you recognize, or there's a sameness. So it's in the sharing that we make those connections. So without the sharing, it's harder to connect, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's something that all of us can do. It's just whether or not you feel comfortable doing it. And I think, surrounding yourself with other people that you feel comfortable sharing is obviously step one, but like knowing that any little bit that you have to share with somebody impacts them, has the ability to really shift and change the situation for better.
Yeah,
in
and
my
storytelling is like embedded in the fabric of who we are, right? That's how history is passed down. That's how culture is passed down in that bond and connectedness that
yeah.
you spoke of. Let's talk about your morning routine. How do you get up, dress up, and show up?
Ugh. Well, that depends. How hot is it outside? I think, well, Los Angeles isn't always hot, but it's warmer here. Um, I think getting up for me, what I've learned about myself is I have to create structure in my morning. It really dictates the way my morning goes.
Mhm.
If I'm late or if I ignore alarms and I just get up whenever I get up, there's an inherent sense of panic
Yeah.
and I end up skipping a lot of things that I need in my morning to feel really grounded. So the advice is, go to bed early, get up at a normal time. That's helpful. But waking up before I get out of bed, literally before I do anything, meditate.
Yeah.
Even if it's 5 minutes before my feet hit the ground, because I tell myself in the morning when I get up, I typically like to meditate in my living room, not in my bed. But what I've discovered about myself is literally just going into my living room, I'm distracted immediately. My pets, coffee, the people outside, the gardener, doesn't matter. I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing real fast. I'm just going to make this coffee. I'm just going to, pretty soon, 40 minutes have gone by. My phone is pinging. I'm already working. Forget the morning. It's already happening. And I have not meditated. I've not done so meditation, one, that's in bed, minimum 5 minutes. If it's a busy day and I'm already off to the races, I'm like, okay, pause, because that's going to really, that piece just by itself helps so much. If I have 30 minutes, it's hopefully 30 minutes, but at the minimum 5, then it's, come out, feed the cats, and then make the coffee. While that's happening, I usually like to sit and it depends on, again, how much time, but I typically like to do a little chant. I do some chanting in the morning. So that's good. I like that a lot. I feel like it's really good. Opens up the throat chakra, gets things moving, and to just set a couple intentions for my day about how I want it to go. Sometimes that's different depending on the day too. Sometimes it's just something I'll tell myself. I have a 5-minute journal, like a lot of people, a gratitude journal. The days that I remember to do it, those are good days. It's on my desk. I see it every morning. Some days I'm like, yeah, sit down and do that. If I don't, it just, yeah, there's a window in which these things all happen. And if they don't happen, they don't happen at all. But the goal is, writing down 3 things I'm grateful for every day. Anything, doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, I'm good at the end of the day because it's nighttime. I'm a nighttime person, but writing down at the end of the day, 3 things.
Yeah, the distraction piece is real because the day it runs away with you. It gets away from you. I mean, like if you have cats, you got to feed them. Then that's another distraction if you don't meditate before you step outside. And we have a toddler at home, and if I don't step like a ninja, and then she hears the crack on the floor, she's up, and then boom, there goes the morning.
That's it.
The meditation piece is very key. And actually, one thing that I suggested to a lot of our listeners, and I wrote a blog about this in an episode, was for me, 80% of my morning routine is done in bed. The journaling, the meditation, the drinking a glass of water right next to the bed, the actual audio book I listen to, the affirmations I listen to, me laying there for 30 minutes while after waking up. My husband is still asleep. And it's been imperative. If I could work out in bed, I would. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other piece, right? It's hard. The harder part for me is this age, I'm 49, and I feel like sleep is really important. I love sleeping. It makes me a nicer person along with coffee. But I feel like if it's warm in the morning, I have it until about 8:30 to get out of the house. I like to go for about a 3.5 mile walk in my neighborhood. I love my neighborhood. It's beautiful. People walk their dogs. I don't have dogs, but I like to go for my walk outside. But it does get really warm in the summer months. And if you don't get out before like 8:30, you're not going out. So if I'm late, then there's no walk, which also I think I really like grounding outside. I feel like having, that connection with being outdoors, being in nature. I mean, even though I live in Los Angeles, like my neighborhood's very suburban and I really, really enjoy walking outside. I see my neighbors, I see their pets. I love animals. I love to be outside in the morning. And it's also a good way for me just to ground in and have some time to myself before the day starts, meetings start, calls, the whole nine, because it's off to the races and it just depends. So my goal has been sort of bartering with myself about sleeping in extra and not walking, or getting up early and walking. And it's sort of a trade-off. Some days I think it's better to get out the door and get outside, even if I'm a little more tired, or do the extra sleep and then don't do the outside. Then I always regret that a little bit more, but I feel like, some days you need the sleep. So
yeah, that sunlight really helps as well. Waking your body up, getting that vitamin D straight away. So and then it goes down to listening to the body, right? It's going to tell you what it needs to feel its best. So that's the beauty of our magical, wondrous body. Angela, tell us, where can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Well, right now you can mostly find me at Winona.com, or actually, I think you can find us now just at Winona.com. I host a webinar, a live Q&A session with our medical director and our chief medical officer the last Thursday of every month. 4:30 PST. You can come and bring any of your menopause questions and have them answered by our doctors. I'm there moderating every month. And we are also offering a lot of virtual workouts at Winona for women who want to get in some kind of physical movement. Maybe you don't have time, maybe you don't belong to a gym or a yoga center or a whatever meditation space. We offer monthly free events, so you can definitely keep your eye on all things at Winona. And for myself, my job predominantly, it takes up most of my time. So I will say that, teaching privately and things like that, a little harder at the moment. I haven't had a lot of extra free time to be doing things on my own. You definitely in the next year can keep an eye out for a poetry collection coming from me. So that would be something that I would probably publicize on my own personal Instagram, which is, AngD 1975. That's my handle. I have a website too. It's at angelastubbs.net. But I think for all things menopause, definitely want to visit Winona.com. There are a lot of things on Winona. If you want to come to any events that we're doing, you'll definitely see me at all of those. I handle all of our events in addition to the PR and the educational pieces. So if you live in Southern California, definitely you can find me there. We're also going to be in New York in October doing a She Leads Media event. We're sponsoring it, and I'm going to be moderating a panel with some really amazing physicians and authors. So it's going to be a really great space to highlight entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, and health and wellness.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been a delight having you on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.